Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second day of our event on the availability of apprenticeships organized jointly by the Committee of the Regions, the European Commission, and also the Alliance for European Alliance for Apprenticeships. Yes, we are here on the second day to discuss the role of regions and cities in delivering high-quality apprenticeships for all. We had already a very interesting first day yesterday. We heard from Commissioner Nicolas Schmit, and we also heard from the chair of the SEDEC, so the Social Affairs Committee of the Committee of the Regions, Madame Karjalainen. We heard some introductory words. We heard there is a lot to do still to make apprenticeships and their availability much more broader, much more achievable for the majority of people in Europe. We had some interesting presentations from practitioners all across the EU. So we heard a lot about the Porto Summit and the agreements that were found there to support apprenticeships. We also discussed some of the problems, like the still rather patchy availability of apprenticeships in some countries in Europe. We also discussed about the perception of vocational education and training, how this needs to actually get a better image and have people to understand that really having the skills linked to a certain craft is a value and is very important to have, and it is by no means less worthwhile than having a university degree. We also discussed about getting young people better professional and career advice in perhaps taking up an apprenticeship. And we also discussed about more mobility in the context of Erasmus+, so allowing apprentices, the same way as university students can do already, the possibility to actually work in other EU countries and really create thereby a European labor market. This morning now, we will be hearing again from Mrs. Karjalainen. The focus of this session is on the European Pillar for Social Rights. So we really want to discuss about the implementation of the action plan that has been agreed in the context of said Porto Summit. And we will be hearing both from Mrs. Karjalainen, who is the rapporteur on the implementation of the EPSR, so the European Pillar for Social Rights, from a local and regional perspective in her role as a member of the Committee of the Regions. And we will also be hearing from Chiara Riondino, the head of unit at the DG Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion. They will both give us their views from the European and also from the regional level. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing from our two speakers this morning. And without further ado, I would just hand over now the floor to Anne Karjalainen, and I'm looking forward to your presentation. The floor is yours. Press the speak button and hopefully the technology plays along.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to be here today to present the Committee of Regions' opinion on the implementation of the European Pillar of Social Rights from the local and regional perspective. The implementation of Pillar is in a sense in hands of local and regional authorities, and it underpins our efforts for a socially just, green and digital transition and for a fair recovery from the pandemic. To put the pillar in context with regard to our conference, it is no coincidence that the very first principle of the pillar refers to education, training and lifelong learning. Local and regional authorities are key to the delivery of quality and inclusive services related to this first principle, which is essential for successful transitions in the labour market. Let me underline some important points in relation to skills and apprenticeships highlighted in the opinion of the European Committee of the Regions. Firstly, we stressed that recovery from the COVID-19 crisis, the green and digital transitions and democratic changes will affect Europe's regions and sectors differently, requiring a reallocation of labor and substantial retraining. The committee calls on the member states, local and regional authorities and social partners to find solutions for adult access to upskilling and reskilling, with special attention for vulnerable groups, but also older workers who are unemployed. Secondly, we propose that education and skills objectives be integrated not only into the implementation of European education area, but also the European research area and the European skills agenda, leaving no one behind in the green and digital transitions. Thirdly, we point out that local and regional authorities have a key role to play in developing skills-related policies and providing training. The Committee of Regions calls for the use of apprenticeships under the effective active support for employment and the European framework for apprenticeships. The use of those two schemes allows also SMEs to offer apprenticeships to young people, and it can help improve the labor market situation of underrepresented groups. Ladies and gentlemen, regions and cities can drive the green and digital transitions forward across Europe. But to be successful, we need to apply a more socially driven model where skills, vocational education and training, and apprenticeships are at the core of this transformation. In my view, a multi-level approach is essential, and the involvement of local and regional authorities in the design, implementation, testing of policies related to vocational education and training, as well as apprenticeships, is fundamental to achieving our goals. A dedicated budget should be allocated for different types of upskilling and reskilling activities across European regions. This is important because labour market disparities exist primarily within member states. I would go one step further and call for an integrated budget to support skills, vocational education and training, and apprenticeships. It should support projects that considerably widen the participation of more regions and cities from different parts of Europe and go beyond the capital cities. The European Committee of the Regions can play an active and facilitating role in this process. There is no doubt that cities and regions are at the front line of providing growth, jobs, high-quality apprenticeships, and tackling global challenges. However, there is no one-size-fits-all solution, and a territorially sensitive approach is the only way forward. Reducing existing deep territorial disparities is a precondition for the attainment by 2030 of the three headline targets for employment, training, and poverty reduction set in the action plan for the implementation for the European Pillar of Social Rights. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Anna, for your contribution and for your insights. And I think, indeed, it's very important to use institutions like the Committee of the Region to exchange on experiences and best practices of those actually very active in the field and of those that are in the position of enabling exchange and lifelong learning programs in their region. So thank you very much for that. And now I would love to hand over to Chiara Riondino, the head of unit for skills, VET, apprenticeships and adult learning at DG Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion of the European Commission. We've heard from the regional level and now we will hear from the European level on your perception of the implementation and the meaning of the action plan for this field of apprenticeship. Chiara, the floor is yours. Press the speak button and then hopefully technique. Yay!
Hello, good morning. Thank you very much. And thank you very much also to Ms. Karjalainen for this important opinion on the implementation of the Pillar of Social Rights from the Committee of the Regions perspective. We are very much in line with the issues and the messages and the priorities that have just been outlined. We are in a positive, I would say, moment where we start seeing a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel after a difficult year or more than a year that we are facing the challenges of the pandemic and everything that it brought with it. The pandemic surely has, on one hand, accelerated some trends that were already there. If we think about the digitalization of work, the digitalization of learning, now we are all working, learning, even living and interacting with our loved ones in a way that we probably would not have expected a year and a half ago, although the trend was already there. But the pandemic has also exposed and deepened some existing inequalities. If we think about the digital divide, the lack of infrastructure, in education and training, even more pupils, learners have had to rely on the support of their families. So those moments in schools, at work, that would normally help us all have a sort of equalizing opportunities have been missed during this period. And of course, vocational education and training and apprenticeships, since they are very much work-based, have suffered the most in terms of disruption. The pandemic has also accelerated the transitions towards a greener society and a greener economy. And we can say that if we want to look at the silver lining, maybe the fact that we are more conscious and we are more aware and that we are really have had the possibility in this months that we were in our homes to take this moment also at very much also at regional, at city level, to upgrade the infrastructure. I live in Brussels, and here this moment has really been an occasion for creating more cycling lines and reducing traffic. So there is some good thing that is coming out of this pandemic. And in general, the twin transitions offer undeniably opportunities for growth and increased well-being overall. But this will not be automatic. We know, for example, if we look at job forecasts, we see that we can expect 1 million new jobs by 2030 created in the context of the green transition, and 2 million by 2050 in the EU. But there will also be some jobs that will be lost and other jobs that will be radically changed. And this will not be a zero-sum game in specific sectors, because we know that the job loss will happen more in polluting sectors, and the job growth will be more in sectors that are linked to the greening of products and services, and in general society. So we need a mix of policy responses at EU, national and regional and local level to ensure that this transition will be fair and just, that these opportunities that will be created will be available to all. And the pillar of social rights is our compass to ensure that people have access to equal opportunities, access to the labor market, fair working conditions in traditional and new forms of work, social protection and inclusion. And more than ever, as Ms. Karjalainen just pointed out, we need investment in education, vocational training, lifelong learning, upskilling and reskilling. I know that you have already spoken at length about the Porto Summit, but just to recall the three very important, ambitious, and yet achievable targets that member states, social partners, civil society have endorsed. We want by 2030 to reach at least 78% of the adult population in employment. We want 60% of adults taking part in training every year. And I would say, crucially, we need to lift people out of the risk of poverty and social exclusion. It is not acceptable that in this day and age in Europe there are 91 million persons living in poverty. Our target is to lift at least 50 million of people out of poverty and at least 5 million children. I think this should be our collective priority and responsibility. As you know, the Commission has already put forward a number of actions and will continue to put forward a number of actions in the context of the action plan to implement the pillar. Last summer, we published a youth employment support package with a youth guarantee and the relaunch of the European Alliance for Apprenticeships. We have published the skills agenda that was just mentioned with 12 actions. I will not go into the details of this, but one that I would like to mention in particular is the Pact for Skills, because the Pact for Skills is something that is very relevant at regional and local level, because we have to make things happen at that level. I mean, we can do a lot in terms of policies, but the training, the connection with the labor market, the connection with the need of the society is at the local level. And it's important to bring employers, workers, training providers, public authorities together to look at what is needed and provide the training and the learning that is needed so that people can really contribute to the specific needs of the fabric of the territory. We also, of course, proposed, and then it was adopted, a council recommendation on vocational education and training. With these, we really want to make sure that that equips young people and adults with the skills they need. Of course, now the focus is very much on the recovery, the green and the digital transition. But of course, this should also, and very importantly, give people the tools they need to continue, even when they leave education and training, continuously update and upskill and reskill. In terms of apprenticeship, as you know, we have at European level the European Framework for Quality and Effective Apprenticeships. And we will, as Commission report on its implementation, but I can already tell you that from our findings, we see that the 14 criteria that were included in the framework are still very relevant and will guide us to continue to do even better. And we are happy to work with member states and local and regional authorities to make apprenticeships stronger everywhere in Europe. Of course, funds have been mentioned, so I need to mention Next Generation EU, which is the largest public investment plan in our union history. And there is money there to be spent, but Next Generation EU is not the only facility available. There is the social fund, there is the regional development fund, there is Erasmus Plus that has been increased in its budget and can support also the mobility of apprentices that was just mentioned. So I think that at EU level, as you can see, we're really doing everything we can to take the momentum and continue to improve our policies, but we can't reach people from Brussels, and we really need to the local and regional authorities to really play a role, social partners and civil society to get engaged at local level to make sure that we bring all these nice policies, nice principles. We use these funds to really reach out to people and together recover and go towards a greener future for all, and to go through a more digital future for all. That maybe it's not something that we collectively would wish, but it's there, and we have to make the most of it. So that is from my side, but I am very interested in particular to continue to listen to this thematic discussion and to explore ways to mobilize local and regional players and encourage cross-border cooperation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chiara, for this interesting insights and also to have this overview of the various activities by the Commission. I really like your image of the EPSR, so the European Pillar for Social Rights, as a compass, and also with the headline targets from the Porto Summit. I think it's very important that those things are really being taken up. And as you say, indeed, the pandemic has prevented us from having those chance meetings that lead to so many opportunities for everyone. So really looking forward that this hopefully comes to an end soon and we can have those encounters again and help people get access to information and to the right contacts. As you say, you can lead a horse to water. As the Commission, you can offer all kinds of different programs, activities, etc. But then the action has to happen on the ground, meaning at the regional and the municipal level. And this is really where we need to sort of mobilize actors. Which leads us nicely into our fourth session of this event. We will have two thematic discussions in parallel now. One is going to be on mobilizing local and regional actors. This is actually happening on this stream here that you're following. And we have a second one. It's about encouraging cross-border cooperation. And for this, I would like to ask you to move to StreamYard to follow the link to access the StreamYard program, and there you can follow this discussion. We will be coming back here to the main floor, so to say, at around 11. And we'll then continue with our next second to last, basically, session, again here jointly. But now you have the option to choose between the two thematic sessions about mobilizing regional and local actors and about cross-border cooperation. So I leave it to you to choose which one you want to pick. And I give the floor here now to Maria Fabiani, who will be moderating the session on mobilizing local and regional actors. The floor is yours.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Hello to everybody. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today Thanks also to the Committee of Region and the European Commission and the European Alliance for Apprenticeship for organizing such an interesting event. Welcome to all of you joining us online, and welcome to the speaker. This panel is focused on two things. First of all, we want to understand how the local and regional actors may be mobilized. And then we also want to understand, based on that, what implication that has had for policies and strategies promoting apprenticeship and skills. Skills are actually a deciding factor for both successful, inclusive and fair economic recovery and for green and digital transition. And apprenticeship are a vital part of the skills pipeline, which has to be strengthened in the context of economic recovery. We have the opportunity today to be inspired by compelling experience and policies across Europe. And I just want to do really quick introduction for our really all-star panel here today. So I'm very honored to introduce and welcome Georgette Bréard, Vice President of the Brittany region. In the 2019, the Regional Council of Britain and the French state signed the Pacte d'investissement dans les compétences, and the Brittany region will invest for the next 4 years more than 500 million euros on the region to train more than 2,000 job seekers, including additional training for under or unqualified people. And I'm so pleased to welcome Teresa Maria Zotta, Deputy Mayor of the Metropolitan City of Rome, my city, in charge for youth policies, vocational training and budget. The Metropolitan City has developed since 2017 a dedicated program to support dual learning in the metropolitan area and launched in cooperation with the European Alliance for Apprenticeship, while facing the challenge of the pandemic, a network of metropolitan cities and cities supporting apprenticeship. Quite bold, right? And from the south of Europe, we go to the north of Europe, to Sweden. Welcome and thanks Anders Karlberg to be here. He's head of the Department of Research, Development and Education in Regional Development at Region Västra Götaland. The region wants to become a region for everyone. And they put a considerable effort towards this end by, for example, working to create successful matching on the labor market, creating and supplying appropriately skilled labor to society. From always from Sweden, welcome to Rasmus Flick, Project Manager, West Sweden Chamber of Commerce. Rasmus manages a regional project for apprenticeship in the region. The project develops vocational education throughout the region by supporting learners, educators, and business. From the north of Europe back to the south, and pleased to introduce Ricardo Lamadrid Insauraga, Director General for New Technology and Advanced Learning, Ministry of Education, Basque Government. The Basque region benefits from a strong vocational educational training system, and dual learning is taking a more prominent role in the region, offering an opportunity to expand to higher skill levels and vulnerable groups. Always from the Basque countries, Inigo Aristide Arraiz, Director of Internationalization at Technica Basque VET Applied Research Center. Through networking and direct involvement in the Basque vocational training teaching staff, the center develops innovative projects in the area of technology, education, and management. And actually, technology has been used at a large scale in education training during the COVID-19 crisis. We know that digital solutions have great potential to increase outreach in theory, but in practice, we know that digital inclusion is a major challenge. And I would start this discussion asking to Ms. Breard, Vice President of the Brittany region, how the Regional Council of Brittany is working on digital inclusion, on vocational educational training innovation and vocational educational training for digital economy. So, Ms. Breard, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure for me to be here today to represent Brittany region. You were talking about digital inclusion, and I'd like to say that from a personal point of view, it's a particular pleasure for me to be involved in these discussions at a European level. I'll be finishing my political career in a few weeks' time, and I'd like to express my thanks to everybody I've been able to exchange with over the years with different regions throughout Europe, which has fed into our own work in Brittany. So that was a personal note. Now let me move on to talk about the digital inclusion plan. As was said in the introduction a few minutes ago, this pandemic has changed the situation for education and training in our regions, and that's been the case in Brittany as well as regards digitalisation, both of work and of training. The pandemic has forced us to speed up and to implement a regional programme for digital inclusion that's based on local strategies. This health crisis has raised the question of the impact of digitalisation, how it affects the way people involved in training use digital tools, and what sort of training is provided for trainees or job seekers. And we're responsible for providing that at the local level. It's also raised challenges as regards providing IT tools, equipment to those being trained. And it's also raised the role of businesses, and I'll come back to that in a minute. We strongly believe two things. We've been talking about a green future, and I think that applies to the digital world as well. Digitalisation needs to be introduced in a responsible way, taking account of the environmental and social impacts of digitalisation when it's applied to training. And as I said, we want to involve employers' networks in this. What is digital inclusion? Well, what it means is providing a set of digital skills, enabling people to acquire those skills via various tools that the region has put in place. And the result is various sorts of a digital certification. We have one in particular that was set up at a national level by the social partners that can be obtained. In other words, we're proposing a training pathway, a digital training pathway. That pathway needs to be made available at the local or regional label to those who are in particular need of it, those left out by the digital divide. During the various lockdowns and relaxations, we've introduced increasing digitalisation of training. Development of new distance courses. And now 60–70% of trainees who were already in training at the start of the first lockdown were able to continue with their courses via distance learning. And I'm particularly grateful to the training organisations that enabled this. Very different solutions were offered to trainees to achieve this. And that's why it's so important to have a regional plan, bringing together training bodies, enabling those bodies to reflect about the best innovations to implement using digital technology for the purposes of training. We support training bodies, enabling them to analyse the situations that exist in businesses, supporting the trainers themselves, and providing the digital solutions. We involve all training bodies in this. To promote innovation and new teaching practices. Our regional digitalisation plan is based on the idea that throughout the country there's a network of places where training can take place. Some cases these are workplaces. There's also a need for adaptation to challenges like ensuring digital inclusion, providing training, skills and competencies to the trainers to ensure that the systems used respect the environment and are inclusive. That requires a more inclusive approach to human resources management. And that's why it's important to work with employers' networks. And I'd like to say a few words about that now. The only way this sort of plan can work is if it's based on a network of businesses, a network of employers and professional organisations. Why is this important? It's important because information needs to be available about jobs and the various training courses that are available for job seekers and workers. It's important also to raise awareness amongst employers about digital challenges. I've mentioned responsible digitalisation, inclusive digitalisation already, and I won't go back over that, but I would like to say that we need to raise awareness amongst employers to ensure that when digital techniques are deployed, they're done in a way that respects the environment and also respects the diverse nature of those undergoing training. It's important to ensure that employers don't simply recruit on the basis of a qualification, how many years of post-school education. It's important to have a broader approach to managing human resources to enable those who've been outside employment for longer, who are in more difficult situations, but who do have the skills or have the capacity to acquire them, to return to the workplace. For us, therefore, what needs to be done is to be set up a network based on existing networks. I won't list them all. But the idea here is to work together with employers, together with businesses, to put in place this digital inclusion plan for our region. And it's an ambitious plan. Thank you.
Digital and green transition and fair economic development with skills, employment and social rights is critical now more than ever. Anders, I wonder how in a different context like the Swedish one, the apprenticeship fits in your broader regional strategy, and what are the benefits of a regional perspective on apprenticeship from your experience in the Swedish apprenticeship system? Anders, you have the floor. Thanks.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you for a very interesting conference so far. The region is heavily industrialized, especially in the automotive sector, but the region is broad industrially. And even now, as we have been in the pandemic, we have felt the need to have skilled workers in the main industries, and we have to try different ways of achieving this need to meet the demand for skilled workers. And certainly apprenticeships are one of the main tools that we have in achieving this goal. And we are different. We are trying many different tools. Apprenticeships is one that traditionally has not been so strong in Sweden over the last decades, but it's through the novel work of, for instance, the Chamber of Commerce that we will listen to in a little while. We are finding new ways to move ahead here and to attract young people, because after all, to meet the demand is always a question of attracting people into the labor force and into the work to the different vocations where there's a great need. We are seeing that apprenticeships is very suitable for some students, and we are also trying to see apprenticeships as a tool to include parts of the labor force, the young people that are at risk of exclusion and of becoming on the margins of society. For some of these people, vocational studies and apprenticeships is a way of including them in the workforce at an early stage, and also making them find a very strong and meaningful purpose in society. So I would say that it's one of the tools that we are working with. It's an instrument that has great potential, but has been used to a small extent over the last decades. So therefore, we are so pleased to work together with the Chamber of Commerce, where Rasmus is the project leader and is really innovating new ways of finding apprenticeships to be a modern and successful way of meeting the needs of companies. And as far as I understand, also the companies are very pleased with this approach. So I would like to hand over the floor to Rasmus, who is with us here today also. We are both in the region of Västra Götaland. Rasmus is working for the Chamber of Commerce. I am for the region, but certainly we are having a great partnership here, public and private in that sense, trying to reach the goals. So thank you, and please, Rasmus.
Thank you, Anders. Exactly as you mentioned earlier, the apprenticeship system in Sweden we don't have a very strong apprenticeship tradition in Sweden, and in the system it is the National Education Agency who decides on the curriculum for all vocational education and training, including apprenticeships. And it's then up to the regional and the local vet institutions to deliver the apprenticeships programs. And doing so, they have the full power and full responsibility over the programs, which means it is the vet institutions that decides what courses will the program include, who will be enrolled to the program, and when will the program start. And of course, in this type of system, companies are a bit reluctant since they can't recruit their apprentice themselves. They are being handed one, and they can't decide when the apprentice will start. And furthermore, it's often difficult for the companies to understand what the apprentice is set to learn during their apprenticeship period. since the curriculum is often described in very technical terms, and it's difficult for the companies to translate it into work.
La Metropolitana di Roma intende offrire il proprio contributo e abbiamo pianificato per la fine del mese un gruppo di lavoro nazionale delle città metropolitane. Auguro a tutti un buon lavoro.
Thanks a lot, Ms. Zotta. So proud to have you as Deputy Mayor of my metropolitan city. And now, as you can see, this is going to be a really fascinating panel as we go forward. Those are excellent and really interesting answers, and couldn't have been more diverse. And I also thanks Ms. Zotta because she answered to a question from the audience because they asked about the National Recovery Plan and how it addresses apprenticeship and the promotion of apprenticeship. Actually, what we have seen that intelligence, sustainability, integration, and solidarity are some of the basic components of the implementation of regional and metropolitan policies for vocational and educational training and apprenticeship. And both are an integrative part of skill ecosystem, contributing to regional and metropolitan development, innovation, and smart specialization strategies. And we have also learned that region and metropolitan region do not work in isolation. So my next question to Ricardo and Inigo is, could you briefly present the key collaborative work taking place in the Basque region to support the creation of new knowledge and applied innovation process? Ricardo, you have the floor. You have some problem. I kindly ask to. Okay.
Yes. So, now. Okay. Thank you, Maria, and good morning to everybody. Yes, I will try to explain briefly, in a simple way, which are our key elements to support the creation of new knowledge and apply innovation. One of these elements is that as Basque BET system, we have a direct connection with the RIS3 strategy and the agents involved in its definition. Another key element is the inclusion of BET within the Basque Science and Technology Plan, and Technica is a member as an agent of the plan together with research and innovation centers, technology centers, and universities. Of course, the close collaboration with the other Basque government's department, like Economic Development Department or Employment Department, and so on, are of course key elements also. As BET system, we have like a systematic meetings with clusters and business associations, involving them in the learning process of the students. We have close collaboration also with other territorial agents, such as county councils, regional development agencies, and town councils also. And of course, another key element, and maybe the most important one, is the collaborative work between our Basque BET centers and companies, primarily SMEs and micro SMEs. This collaboration is based in the creation of new knowledge and applied innovation processes through collaborative innovation projects. We are convinced we are convinced that that innovation is not based in thinking, but is based in doing and interacting. And we are working this way in the Basque BET system. I think we think that there is no secret. Networking and partnership between different agents are the key elements. And now, Iñigo, let's talk about a concrete example, and maybe our best example of all I have said just now. Iñigo?
Thank you, Ricard, and good morning, everyone. So I'll try to give a European dimension to what you were saying, Ricard. So yeah, we realize that our vet centers are working in alignment with regional strategies, with the S3 strategies, as you were mentioning. They are also included in the Basque Plan for Science, Technology and Innovation. They are also offering a wide variety of services, not just initial training, but continuous training, innovation services to SMEs, applied research projects, entrepreneurship, etc. And they are also very integrated in the regional ecosystem. They are working with companies, with R&D centers, with governments, with many agents. And this is clear. This is good at regional level, and this is what they should be doing, because a vet center works in the region or in the area, and they train the workers of the area, they train the students of the area, and they work with the companies of their surroundings. So this is completely fine. But we were kind of missing a European dimension of this whole thing, because we realized that they were very well connected at regional level, but then this connection was lacking at a bigger European level. And as you know, at these times, this type of connection is completely vital. You cannot survive on your own. You need to connect with others. And it was the time that we were thinking and reflecting on this issue. And at the same time, the Commission launched the initiative of Centers of Vocational Excellence. So we decided to apply for a platform of Centers of Vocational Excellence in advanced manufacturing and 4.0 industry. So, and the basic idea was to connect these centers that are working well at regional level, but to connect them at European level, and to have them work in a platform. And we presented it in advanced manufacturing, because this is a very relevant sector for our economy and for our smart specialization strategy. And yeah, I think I was supposed to speak for 3 minutes, so I don't want to give many details about this very interesting project. But in any case, if you are interested in knowing more about this platform of Centers of Vocational Excellence, yes, you can just send us an email or give us a call, and we'll be happy to answer any type of question. So thank you.
Yes.
Thanks a lot. Actually, I invite the audience to get through this project, because it's a very interesting and compelling project. And well, we have more or less 5 minutes for an additional question. And I would like to ask to you, to Ricardo and to Inigo, about the presence of women in technology, because apprenticeship program mirror the lack of diversity in technology, and women are across Europe underrepresented in high quality sectors. What are your strategies to improve inclusion and equity in technology through apprenticeship?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, Maria. Yes. Yes. We are aware of the gap that we have. I think in the Basque Country and maybe all over Europe, in the field of the gender balance in VET, and this is the reason why we included some years ago. We included it not only in our strategies, in VET strategies, but also in our Basque VET law. A complete chapter is of this law. A complete chapter of this law is dedicated to the gender balance, and it's the same in case of our fifth Basque BET plan. We have another plan, and in this plan, we among the 9 strategic lines, one of them is dedicated to the gender balance also. In the other hand, in all our curricula also, the gender balance is included in a transversal way in all our BET degrees. So from a political point of view, all our laws, plans, and so on, we have included the gender balance to boost the presence of women in industrial degrees, BET degrees.
Yes, and then if we come to the vet center level, to the institution level of the actual colleges, it's compulsory for them to write a strategic plan every 3 or 4 years, and it's compulsory for them to include gender balance in this plan. Then this plan is concretized in yearly plans, and every year they need to include gender balance and include at least two big activities in gender balance. And then they also need to have each school a gender balance plan. So
yes.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, because I think that women can make a great contribution to recovery and to economy, and to especially to fair economic development. If Ms. Breard is still with us, I would like to ask her how the National Recovery Plan in French include the apprenticeship dimension, and how does it respond to the urgent needs of regional industrial and the innovation ecosystem. Maybe we have some problem to connect to Miss Breard.
Bonjour, je vais vous demander. Yes, thank you. Could I ask you to repeat that question? Because we had battery problems, so I wasn't able to hear the questions that you asked, Maria. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. It was about inclusion for women, is that right?
Actually, from the audience, we have a question about your national recovery plan, and how does it include the apprenticeship dimension?
Excusez-moi, j'ai pas de traduction. Sorry, I'm not receiving any interpretation, says the speaker.
Et on a une question sur les...
Right, in French now. We've got a question about the National Recovery Plan. And we wanted to know, it was a question from the audience, as to whether that plan also includes apprenticeships. Thanks very much. Right, our recovery plan, which does include a number of different aspects, does have one particular aspect on training. It's a major aspect that goes through a plan called One Young Person, One Solution. And the whole point there is to support young people who are having a hard time getting a foothold in the job market through our recovery plan. So in the region of Brittany, we are suggesting additional training programs in different areas of activity, particularly in the digital sector, the ecological transition sector, the industry sector, because I'm sure you know that, like many other European regions, we are in a process of re-industrializing. So we're going to be able to have people who are trained and qualified with the necessary skills, and we'll be able to meet businesses' needs. And then we've got a fourth sector, which is a priority for us as well, which is the health sector, the support sectors, particularly nursing care, healthcare assistant, as well as domestic help. So in terms of our training, that's the content of the recovery plan, which is particularly adapted to the needs of local government. And they are really focusing on the training aspect of that recovery plan. So we in Brittany have obtained 26 million euros in subsidies so that we can promote that training aspect of the recovery program.
Keep the schedule. So I have thank you to all speakers for such interesting presentation. Unfortunately, I have to close question here because our time is over. And so I thanks again all the speakers, and do not stay tuned because the next panel will be on good practice which remain, and is going to be moderated by Norbert Schöbel, team leader, vocational educational training, apprenticeship and adult learning, European Commission. Norbert is going to briefly introduce his panel and then kick off a similar structured debate to the one that we have just had on the chat. So thanks again to everybody, and especially to my speakers.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you. And I'm very happy now to start with the next session. And as you can see, I am in the Committee of Regions, and I'm very happy to be here because, if you allow me a personal remark, I worked here 8 years. At the beginning of my career, it was, I think, one of my most interesting part of my career. I learned a lot, and my heart still beats for the local and regional authorities. And so I'm very happy that together with the Committee of Regions and the European Alliance for Apprenticeship, we could organize this meeting today. I would like to thank everybody who contributed from the Committee of Regions. I would particularly thank Alexandra Bosini, who has done a great job to make it happen. And I would also like to thank Sandra, who has moderated so far this event yesterday and today as a Master of Ceremony. Now, I have 4 speakers ready to join. I hope you're all there. And I will start with asking a question, and I will introduce one by one, not all of 4 of you, so it's easier maybe for the audience. So I will start with Vlasis Korovilis. I'm sorry, I'm not prepared, it looks like. And we cannot start having a discussion, I would say, on vocational education and training without inviting CEDEFOP, because Vlasis, you're an expert from CEDEFOP. And my first question, and you get a second one in a second, would be to start. We have both seen and followed the session yesterday moderated by your colleague, Lydia Salvatore, and I would like to know from you, what did you learn? What were the key messages, so that we get a little bit, for those who did not attend the meeting yesterday, some ideas from the session on upskilling and reskilling. So, please, I cannot see you, but now I see you.
Yes.
Good.
Thank you, Norbert. Thanks to the organizers as well for having us here today. So as you said yesterday, the session was moderated by my colleague Lydia Salvatore, and it was on upskilling and reskilling adults. But nevertheless, many good points that were mentioned yesterday are also relevant for apprenticeship in particular. So I would start from one of the first takeaways, a first key takeaway, that I think it was quite, it ran through all 3 interventions, was the need to base interventions and policy responses on the one side, on what is the economic situation and the needs of a specific region or a local community, and on the other side, on its capacity in terms of factors, in terms of resources, in terms of infrastructure. And we had a good example from Cluj-Napoca, where Mr. Boca said explicitly that the first step that they would follow in order to address future challenges would be exactly this, to map what is there in the local community in terms of resources, of capacity, and then plan ahead the interventions. As Mr. Chaba, also from the Hagrita County Council said, one size fits all approaches are less efficient. So this is the main idea of many of the interventions, that there should be adaptation at local level, and I think this is highly relevant to apprenticeship as well. Some more practical examples in this direction was that were mentioned yesterday, was the idea of creating an agile local mechanism to observe data, so that they can the local stakeholders can identify changes that happen at early stages. And another one was the idea of adapting curricula to local needs. All these things, all these ideas came from upskilling and reskilling, but I think they're highly relevant to apprenticeship as well. Then Mr. Bock referred to the role of stakeholders, local stakeholders, and gave examples of how he personally is actively contributing in changing mentalities of learners and parents, and motivating people to participate in training. And both when it comes to adults, but also in apprenticeship overall life or for adults, I think this is a common challenge. The preference of learners, and most importantly, often their parents, towards for higher education, for general education, I think this is a common challenge. And Mr. Kirsten from Bremen, from an institute in Bremen that promotes dual learning for refugees, highlighted as a key element in shifting mindsets the power of examples, how examples of successful learners who graduate from their programs can be used and is used to improve the attractiveness and visibility of their program. I would also like to talk about a few keywords that they were brought, they were mentioned by speakers. There was the need to be proactive at local level, so that the human capital can become resilient by having the right skills. And I think this is a key element, that regions' capacity to grow, or local communities' capacity to grow, is based on the capacity of its human resources. And that was a very clear message from Mr. Chab and Mr. Bock. Staying at local level, I would also mention how important was, in the example of Mr. Christen, how important was the need to support learners. So it's not just about attracting them, but offering them right conditions to cover gaps in basic skills, like in language or in math, and also to support them, to keep them in training, so to support them through difficulties that they may face during the training period. I think all people related to, who have experience in implementing apprenticeship at local level, I think they would all agree to the importance of this kind of support throughout an apprenticeship experience. So all these examples lead to the same direction, how much collaboration among stakeholders is valued also at local level and regional level. Collaborative projects are needed, and the case of Cluj-Napoca was a very good example, an excellent example of how multi-stakeholder and participatory approach can help accelerate investment in human capital at local level. As Mr. Bock put it, it's about working in an ecosystem, not an ecosystem. And I think this is a very nice message to wrap up. Thank you.
That's indeed, we should keep that as a key message, the ecosystem from the ecosystem. Thanks a lot. This was more than a summary. I just have let's say a second question, because CEDEFOP, you have done a lot on research. What would you think for the audience? What would you think would be a key message you would like to pass before I go to the next speaker from your experience, from the research side? Because our session is about 1 year after COVID-19. And good practices that will remain, or even, you might have done studies which showcase practices as well. Can you just complement a little bit when we look at the future? What should the audience take away?
Yes, thank you. I think I would start from what Mr. Rondino said, that the pandemic accelerated trends that were already there and accentuated gaps and inequalities that were already there. And I think this is my approach to how we should address the future challenges. So it's about having conditions for a quality and effective apprenticeships that matter, not in times of crisis, but in periods of normality. And I think the European Framework for Quality and Effective Apprenticeships is a very robust and a very good reference point to this direction. Because if you have certain conditions already in place and you manage to have quality and effective apprenticeship systems, then you are more prepared for future crises. So, for example, cooperation and partnership, as was mentioned also by the speakers yesterday, I think it's in any case a desired situation, because it will help all stakeholders understand what apprenticeship training is about. It will help them better understand what are the programs that will be most in need in the future, regardless of if a crisis comes and brings the need a bit earlier or a bit more, or let's say intense. So this is an element of an efficient and effective and quality apprenticeship system. Or, for example, the existence of mechanisms that would help collect needs at local level and convey them to a higher level, so that the design of apprenticeship programs, the selection to begin with of apprenticeship programs, and then the development of curricula will be based on real needs. I think this is an element that should exist in any way. And when the time comes, in times of crisis, it would help address crisis even faster. Also, there should be an understanding what an apprenticeship is and what it is for. So it's a good thing to have adaptation and flexibility, either at local needs in any case, or in times of crisis, to be able to shift the attention to specific learning outcomes and not other ones. But if stakeholders already in the period of normality, as I said, have an understanding of what an apprenticeship program serves in the country or in the region or the local community, then they will know that even within crisis, but even more when you're not in crisis, you need to deliver, you need to help learners, apprentices, achieve a specific set of learning outcomes that would be useful for them to find jobs in the future. So we have some cases where because of the crisis, programs were actually shortened. Apprenticeship programs were actually shortened. They were not postponed. That means that this cohort of apprentices must have learned fewer things than the previous and the next cohort. This might result in some concerns over the qualification, the value of the qualification they got, and the comparability between one cohort and the other. These are things that are issues and challenges that are accentuated by a crisis, but in any case should be at the heart of policy making, how to make sure that there is flexibility, but there's also comparability of the learning experience and the learning outcomes an apprentice gets, so that there is value and trust in the qualification, and there is long-term employability for this person.
Vlasis, you already made, I think, I had the feeling, the concluding remarks of our session. No, many thanks. But let's move on, and please stay with us. There might be an additional question at the end, if time allows. But I want to move on to Dennis Limi. I'm very happy to have you. First of all, I found your, let's say, biography interesting in the sense, I don't go back, but your two functions. Because on one hand, you are a chief executive on the Cork Education Training Board. Cork is in Ireland, and it's still on my list. I've never been, and one day I want to go there. Quite an interesting town. And at the same time, you are chair of the OECD Employment and Economic Developing Directing Committee. Now, please tell the audience, what do you do more? Is it Cork? Is it the OECD? And how does this work together? And do you influence, let's say, what you decide in Cork coming from the OECD, or is it the other way around? I'm very curious about your double function. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Norbert, and glad to be here this morning. In terms of my primary role is role as Chief Executive of Cork Education and Training Board that serves a region of 700,000 people. But I'm also, as you say, the chair of the OECD Local Economic and Employment Development Committee, and I suppose in many ways, both influence each other. So if you take the Local Employment and Economic Development Committee, that's made up of representatives from right across the OECD countries, from a regional and national perspective, that are looking at local development, looking at the regions, looking at growth in the regions, but focusing in on skills and promoting both local growth and inclusion, which is very much at the heart of lead work. And we look at how regions and cities promote high quality skills programs, which indeed very much includes apprenticeship. So I suppose one influences the other, and another part of the lead work is we have a lead forum, which allows for opportunities of peer learning and exchange. So at that lead forum, which we meet on an annual basis, and in the past we were able to do it in person, and we look forward to doing it again. But we'll be able to exchange practices across regions and cities, where we look at local and regional government employment and training programs. We also look at the whole area of social entrepreneurship, and look at the engagement of the private sector, and also the world of peer exchange and learning on topics, ranging from social economy to local development. And I'd encourage participants here today to have a look at that program, because it's a really fruitful exchange of ideas and practices. So in my role in Cork Education and Training Board, one of the main roles is promoting apprenticeship and developing apprenticeships for the region in the national context. And indeed, this week we had the National Economic Recovery Plan from the Irish government, which places a real focus on training, on upskilling, on reskilling, and on apprenticeship in terms of the recovery for the future. If I go to the lead piece, if I may, Norbert, like some of the pieces that we've learned from the work internationally is the importance of local leaders and how they play an important role as champions of apprenticeships in terms of reaching out to employers, and also raising the interest and the benefits of apprenticeships, including looking at the value. And I suppose our previous speakers spoke about this as well. Like it's shown that apprentices have well-paid jobs. They have lower rates of unemployment. There's often this rush within families or within communities to go to higher education. But indeed, the quality jobs that apprenticeships offer, in many instances, can be far greater and more sustainable. We've also, from an international perspective, looked at how to assist employers, especially in the small and medium enterprises, in human resource planning, especially navigating some of those administrative processes and accessing the whole range of government supports that are available in terms of apprenticeships. And what we like to do, I suppose, in Cork Education and Training Board and partners across the OECD countries doing the same in terms of the training and education institutions, is that we look at ourselves as a hub where you'd be forging connections between the employers, young people, and ourselves as training providers. So bringing everyone to the same table so we can identify what the needs are of the economy and society, how we match that to the to young people. And I suppose it's very much a bottom-up approach. So if I could, for example, some of the work that's been brought to the Lead Committee from New Zealand and the United States very much highlights the role of local leaders, including those from civil society, that can play a role in building the culture of apprenticeships and skills building. So, and the other piece is that, and the challenge that's been made to us as a public sector in Ireland of late, is to serve as role models ourselves in taking on apprentices directly and that's a challenge to us as a public sector, and looking at the engagement of apprenticeships within public contracts or infrastructure investments. So that's, Norbert, I suppose, just a bit of an explanation of
I think very good, because I think you talk about local leaders, and exactly, but we need all these levels, and that's why I think it's so important what you do. And I know in Ireland you also try to get away from the traditional sectors and moving in new sectors, which is a challenge in itself. But maybe because you're such a knowledgeable person, can you give us maybe 1, 2 concrete examples on, because our topic is also about apprenticeship for all, concretely good examples of good practice, because this is also our session now. In your view, good practice that will remain. That would be nice to hear from you.
Sure. Yeah. If I could give one of the examples that has come to the OECD lead committee that the OECD lead has looked at. So we have a good example of the Sydney Metro Apprenticeship Programme. So it's as part of so the Sydney Metro Apprenticeship Programme is a very large infrastructure investment, and it has huge demands in terms of talent demands, and it's an industry government training partnership. And as part of this, apprentices are hired by a group training organisation rather than a particular contractor. So it allows for rotation of apprentices among different companies. So this has helped to address employers' concerns around the nature and duration of projects. That it didn't, the employers would be concerned that if they take on an apprentice, they would have apprentices for the long term. But this was a centralised company. That was a partnership between industry and government that helped give sustainable work to apprentices, but they worked in collaboration then with each employer as the work was needed and required, and it worked in a very sustainable way. So that's one example that very much comes to mind. Yeah, in terms of the Irish context, indeed you referred to it yourself, Norbert. I suppose we're all aware of the traditional craft apprenticeships in terms of plumbing, electrics, and building construction or motor mechanics. But over the last number of years, we've been developing a number of what they might call non-traditional apprenticeship systems in terms of the insurance industry, finance, auctioneering, something that's very topical at the moment, cybersecurity as well. And building those non-traditional apprenticeships with employers, engaging with a whole range of learners around that, and building the supports there. So it's about looking at there are clearly a huge amount of opportunities, especially in terms of the future of work. Another part of the OECD lead has been looking at the nature of jobs and the future of work over the next 10 years. Now, there was a study done just before COVID which talked about 40% of jobs over the next 10 years not existing or diminishingly reduced over the next 10 years, and the changing focus. I think it's fair to say that COVID has exacerbated that, and a huge number of new opportunities and jobs have become available. And I think the apprenticeship system allows us to be agile and flexible in responding to that. So, and we can develop and flex the development of those apprenticeships in responding to those particular needs that are ahead over the next number of years. And also in terms of the provision of apprenticeships, we've had the experience through COVID of course, going online for a lot of delivery, but equally the nature of apprenticeship does require someone to be in the reality of doing the job. So maybe in the future it's looking at the blended piece, that we won't go back to the way we were always doing it, but that we take the best of what we've learned over the last year and a half and mix it in with a blended way of providing that.
Thanks a lot. And the first example, if I understood you correctly, was from Sydney, and it's true that the European Alliance for Apprenticeship is going even today. Israel will join. We're not yet like the Eurovision where we have Australia on board, but it's always good to hear also good examples, and Australia is doing a lot also in relation to promoting skills, like they have their Vocational Skills Week. So thanks a lot for your examples, and I hope to keep in contact, and as a local ambassador in a way, and a global ambassador at the same time. If you allow me, I would like to move on to Maria Fabiani, who just moderated a session and I hope you're with us, because I realized that there were some technical problems. Maria, if you're with us now, yes, good. And thanks for moderating just the session on how to mobilize local and regional authorities. I think let's be brief on the question now, which is more, what were your, let's say, what did you learn from this session? Because most of the people, I guess, have joined your session. But in a way, what would you conclude from the session we just had? And then, of course, I would also like to hear, because you, part of the Alliance, have started, which I found a very interesting project, to find getting cities together working on apprenticeship. For me, that is something which really deserves attention. I can only highlight that we're really happy that you are so pushing it and try to do your best. Maybe you can say a few words again about this very, very interesting initiative.
Thanks, Norbert. Well, I was very impressed by the fact that intelligence, solidarity, and integration were common basic components of the implementation of all the regional and metropolitan plans to support apprenticeship and dual learning. I think actually we live in interesting times, and reality calls for adaptation to the new times and to respond to the challenge of a society undergoing transformation, climate change, health crisis, and more technology. But also with a strong need to boost social values and human dimension. And I was again impressed by the fact that all the panelists stressed on government responsibility, social rights, and I think that this focus is definitely a good practice which should remain. By focusing on the most vulnerable public, some regional plans have chosen to focus their action on the least qualified, and to do so, they developed innovative and tailored training offers responding to the recruitment needs in the region. As well involving social partner and business in defining the learning outcomes and in the recruiting and training process. Indeed, a good practice which hopefully will remain is to organize around a vision, the apprenticeship, regional or city strategy. One approach is to establish a region or a citywide apprenticeship goal, or clarify how apprenticeship fits in a regional or city broader economy and social strategy. For example, the Exam for Zero, one of the 5 platforms of VET Excellence approved for funding by the Erasmus Plus program in the Basque countries, is firmly anchored into the framework of regional development and smart specialization. While working also at international level through international collaborative platforms. I found also interesting that some local authorities are also leveraging their contracting and procurement authority to encourage business to offer apprenticeship training opportunities. And this is also happening in the United States, actually. And last but not least, the Metropolitan City launched in cooperation with the European Alliance for Apprenticeship just 1 year ago in June 2020, the Network Cities for Apprenticeship. And I think that this year, this network will provide a number of signposts that can help overcome fear of mindsets that tell us, oh, that will never work in my city or in my region, because this process of peer learning exchange is actually enlightening way of working that can make the process of transfer more realistic and successful. And at the same time, this network is also starting positive action like a national alliance to impact on the implementation of the recovery plan in Italy.
That is indeed quite important what you just said. And of course, we continue to support you, whatever support you need for this network. Maybe one last question to you. Do you have any other examples, maybe from a sector which we are not that familiar, you would like to highlight to explain what kind of projects make sense in these times?
Actually, we have little examples and discussion on the agricultural sector and agro-food sector, which is a strategic sector for the green and digital recovery. But also, it has been critical during the pandemic crisis. In Italy, we have a very interesting experience promoted by a civil society organization. It's the Association Terra, and funded by a private foundation, the non-operative foundation. And they succeeded in promoting a cooperation with regional, local authorities and social partners, and implemented what they have called farms-based courses, which are designed to allow university and higher vocational technical education students to spend time engaged in primary research activities, in formative apprenticeship contract, the so-called third level contract according to Italian regulation. And they have a twofold objective. On the one side, they want to expand the system of collaborative apprenticeship between companies. This system, which already exists, allows apprenticeship to obtain their apprenticeship in 2-3 companies to receive all the necessary professional skills when one single company cannot ensure training all these skills. And on the other side, they want to develop innovative transfer project or research project in agroecology, and engaging actually the agricultural company and also small companies which are often out of cannot reach the research. Actually, FARMS is an acronym which stands for Farms Authentic Research Modules in Science. And I think that they have the capacity to innovate and also becoming a key factor driving economic and social development.
Very interesting, Mary. And I think also traditionally we think of agriculture about the rural areas, but I guess they also move more and more into cities like the metropolitan city of Rome. There's a lot of activities also here in Brussels. Farming can be done also in bigger cities nowadays. So there's a change and a lot of innovation. Thanks a lot for this very concrete example. And I move to the last one from Maria. I go to Mart Veliste, who is a thematic expert on SME competitiveness. We have not talked enough about SMEs. It was not really the topic, but of course this is very important. But he is in his function here coming from the policy learning platform, and you were also a panelist today. And this was the workshop on encouraging cross-border cooperation. So I think I will not ask you to sum up. You were not moderating the session. But I would be interested a little bit here, a bit more about your Interact platform, because I don't think that it's familiar for everybody. And actually, what are you doing concretely? And so that also the audience knows how to get in contact with you and your activities. The floor is yours, Mart.
Okay, thank you. And I presume you can hear me well. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me to speak. Indeed, to explain perhaps to the audience, I represent the Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform, So Interreg Europe might be familiar to some of you. It's territorial collaboration framework that has in this current programming period has financed 258 projects. And the projects all work about policy development. So differently from let's say regional Interregs like Interreg Estonia-Latvia program, where partners from Estonia and Latvia would come up with a pilot project and test something interesting and innovative. The Interreg Europe finances projects that really focus on policy development. So the outcome is not a pilot project, but some changes in regional policies, the way structural funds are used in the region, and so on. So what it does is that the projects, they bring in together representatives from regions that face similar challenges, whether it's rural depopulation, something to do with how to support social entrepreneurship, or how to run effective apprenticeship programs. It could also be an example in the next programming period. And these are the projects. So this is the first pillar of Interreg Europe, but I represent the second pillar, which is the policy learning platform. And this is really, it functions as a website, but also as a group of services that are available. And these are available to everybody. So you do not have to be a member of Interreg Europe projects. You can just go on the website, look at the resources, and apply for our services. And what we do there is that we, for example, gather good practices from within the Interreg Europe community. So various regions have years of experience of doing different things very well. And in order to share this knowledge with the rest of European policymakers, this is all grouped together to this good practice database on our website, and among which are also some examples of innovative traineeship programs or apprenticeship programs, and other ways to how to upskill workers or reskill workers, how to ensure regional economies resilience. So there are different examples in there on the good practice database. So it's Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform good practice database. And then where it gets more interesting, perhaps, and more tangible even, is that we provide free services for regional and local authorities. And these are the matchmaking service and the peer review service. And basically, you just go on our website. There's an easy online form to fill in, to apply for it. And what it is that you present your policy challenge. So, for example, you are planning your new regional apprenticeship program for the next programming period, but you're not sure on which aspects to consider or what you should take into account or what are the risks or how to really design it. Then you can come to us with this challenge, and together we, with our thematic experts and this vast pool of peers across Europe, so we have around 18,000 members on our platform, we will find the most suitable people to come together with you, either for a 2-hour online session or a 2-day visit, whether it's an online visit or a physical visit, to really just provide you tailor-made advice to the concrete challenge, to your regional context and what you're currently working on. So this is in a nutshell what the policy learning platform of Interreg Europe does.
Thanks, Mart. But now my second question maybe is difficult. I don't know if I go to a tourist office and I ask, can you recommend me a restaurant? Then they would tell me, oh, we are sorry, we are not allowed to give you a recommendation. Here's the list. Now you have plenty of good projects, I guess. But if I ask you, can you tell the audience, I don't know, is there a few projects you think they deserve to be highlighted or that they should be mentioned particularly? Do you have something you're allowed to say something about that?
No, I mean, sure. I mean, I think I would highlight probably one of these good practices that we shared also in the breakout session before from Intertrade Ireland. It was very interesting, this innovation boost program that they have now been using for 20 years, where it's a cross-border program where they match an SME from one side of the border and an academic institution from another side of the border, and then they try to boost innovation within this company through a student that's involved in the process, and then the student will be with them for many months, and then this program has really shown impressive results in terms of economic indicators, but I think even more interestingly, the retention figures. So how many students eventually remain working in these companies and in the region, because we also are talking about the global competition for talent and attracting talent. So some of these good practices are really also about retaining talent. And if anybody is interested to know more about these, we actually had a webinar in May. So we have the recording sorry, it was in March, but we have the recording available. So if you go to the Interreg Europe Policy Learning platform website and look for our previous webinars, we had one on workplace training initiatives. Also, Norbert, you were the keynote speaker in the first session there, and you can really get more detailed information about these good practices from the regions. And then, of course, you can go to our database and search around from there as well. Or just write us an email and we'll send you the relevant links to your account, so you don't have to go looking around yourself. We can do it sort of for you.
Thanks, Martin. Indeed, let's keep in touch and let's keep on this very good cooperation with you. And it's really fruitful. Let's come to the end, and unfortunately, there are no additional questions to all of you. So thanks to Vlasis, thanks to Dennis, thanks to Maria, thanks to Mart. Let's hope that the vision our commissioner made yesterday, what about apprenticeship in 10 years, will become reality, meaning that apprenticeships have the same esteem, the same attractiveness as higher education, that digital is fully integrated, part of it, and that also for the attractiveness, for the learners, that mobility abroad is part of apprenticeship curricula. I would like to thank you all again for this session, and I would now hand over to Sandra for a short message before we conclude this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Norbert, and thank you to all of you who contributed to this interesting session. Yes, we will indeed, after you have now been with us for about 2 hours, we will give you a 5-minute break so that you can go and get yourself a coffee, take a breath, and then we will be back here in 5 minutes with the latest developments within the European Alliance for Apprenticeships. So we will hear some interesting news, so don't run away too far, and see you all back in 5 minutes with us here. Thank you.
Ok, Alexandra, it's Joël. Je le sonne, Michael. Ouais, je sais.
Can you see and hear me okay? Right.
We hear you, but we don't see you.
So what's the...
Okay, we will test the video, Alexandra. You forgot to share the screen on that computer because we have the sound, we don't have the image. You forgot to press the present on the computer of the room. And when you click on present, of course, click on the video that you want to share, of course.
Dear members of...
Et voilà!
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you all enjoyed your small break. And now we have a very interesting bit of the conference where we learn about the latest developments within the European Alliance for Apprenticeship. I give the floor now to Kerstin Topmann-Hagen. She is Policy Officer for Vocational Education and Training and Apprenticeships and Adult Learning at DG EMPL of the European Commission, and she will tell us a bit about a recent survey and also something about newcomers. So, Kerstin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sandra, and good morning, everyone. In this EAFA session, I'd like to start with presenting the results of our member survey. Every 2 years, our support service run a pledge monitoring survey among the EAFA members. This survey allows the Alliance to learn about our members' progress and achievements, their key challenges and issues, and their topics of interest. And this survey is very important for us, as it helps us understand the active
Kerstin,
involvement.
sorry for interrupting, but we can't see you. I don't know if you have
Still
switched
can't
off your
see me.
video. Can you maybe check, because we cannot see, we hear you, but we
Okay.
can't see you.
And not now either.
No,
You can't see me?
you're still invisible to us.
It worked. So,
There should be on the top left of your device, there should be a camera that you can click on and then...
yeah, and it says integrated camera. So it's, but maybe on the present button. No, that's not correct. No, so I'm...
Okay, well then we just have to continue listening to you and hope that it works that way. So then we just listen to your presentation. Sorry, but then start again, please.
Okay, but you can hear me okay now. Yeah?
Yeah, we do hear you fine. We just can't see
Okay,
you.
that's great. Okay, I'll continue. So, yeah, I was just saying that the survey is very important for us, as it helps us to understand the active involvement among our members. And that will shape our engagement strategy and also the activities we organize over time. And finally, the survey also allows us to track the impact on apprenticeships of this great dedicated community. So the next slide, please. I can't really see the slides, but the survey collected information on pledge implementation in the period of 2019 and 2020. And as we all know, the pandemic last year had a major impact on education and training, and in particular, work-based learning. So we were very interested in hearing how our members had coped. We received 115 survey responses from 24 countries. And then the next slide, please. We were very happy to see that despite the hard times last year, the majority of respondents, they had managed to make progress on all 4 EAFA objectives: the supply, the quality, the image, and also mobility. Reported progress was, of course, most significant for the supply and the quality and the image, over 80%. But not surprisingly, travel restrictions had an impact on apprenticeship mobility last year. And of course, this is reflected in the figures. So next slide, please. So if I take a closer look on each of the EAFA objectives, 85% of the respondents, they reported that their organization had made major or some progress on quality. Quality improvements cited by our members largely mirrored the criteria listed in the Council recommendation on the European framework for quality and effective apprenticeships, and especially the following criteria: career guidance, awareness raising, pedagogical support, regulatory framework, learning outcomes, involvement of social partners, support for companies, and also flexible pathways. Next slide, please. And regarding strengthening the image of apprenticeships, 86% of respondents reported that their organization had made major or some progress on improving the image of apprenticeships. They had held live or online events, including events related to the European Vocational Skills Week. They had their own online communication activities, also on social media or website content, and also promotional campaigns. Next slide, please. And very impressive, I think, taking into consideration the lockdowns last year, our members created at least 735,355 apprenticeship places in the 2019-2020 period, with on average 11,490 places per organization. And I think we should have a virtual applause to this. Our members were also involved in at least 1,525 mobility experiences, in addition to taking part in mobility projects and initiatives, mostly in 2019. Also, many disseminated information about mobility opportunities. Next slide, please. Another good result is that half of our members have implemented activities supporting apprentices to develop green and/or digital skills. And they have been doing a variety of activities, including integrating green and/or digital skills in the curriculum or in the training offer, participating in specific projects, including EU-funded initiatives. They have been digitalizing internal processes and/or upgrading digital equipment, and they have been greening internal processes as part of corporate social responsibility. So next slide. But COVID-19 also, of course, had a negative impact on our members' efforts. The pandemic caused a reduction of supply of apprentices. It disrupted education and training, and it hindered mobility, and it made it more difficult also to interact with other apprenticeship stakeholders. Next slide, please. But our members, they mitigated, however, the negative impact by several actions. They were moving their online training to online training. They were supporting other organizations in doing this. They were adapting the training environment to the new sanitary requirements. They were moving to online events and promotional activities. And they were advocating for public authorities to take actions to support apprentices. It should also be mentioned, I think, that several of the respondents argued that in some ways COVID-19 had been an opportunity for the rapid digitalization of their activities and also the development of the digital skills. Next slide, please. Besides COVID-19 issues, the main issues for about 40% of our members with implementing the pledges was apprenticeship policy context and financial and human resources. Next slide, please. And finally, we wanted to know how useful the Alpha was for our members. And we were very happy to see that 89% of you considered the Alpha to be very valuable or valuable. The main benefits of the Alpha that was identified by you were knowledge sharing and exchange of best practices, like we heard a lot these 2 days. Networking and opportunities for cooperation, although only online for the last year, will resume hopefully at the end of the year. Access to updated information about the EU policies and innovations in VET, and also increased visibility of the members' activities themselves. So overall, we have learned much from the Alpha member survey, and we will of course take your input into consideration when planning new knowledge sharing activities and networking opportunities. And this was the member survey, and now we are ready to welcome new Alpha members. To this conference on the role of regions and cities in delivering high quality apprenticeships for all, we are delighted to warmly welcome 3 new regional and local authorities. I would like to say welcome to Labora, Valencian Employment and Vocational Training Service in Spain. A warm welcome to my home county in Norway, Vestfold og Telemark County Council, veldig bra, Hege. And welcome Municipality of Livorno in Italy. And we also have a video where 2 of our newcomers will present themselves. So please show the video. Thank you.
Dear members of the European Alliance for Apprenticeship, it's a pleasure to address you as Minister of Employment of the Valencian country in Spain. At Labora, our Employment and Vocational Training Service, we are deeply satisfied to have been able to join the EFI initiative. Our organization Labora is a government agency that is in charge of active labor market policies. Among these are training schemes, employment subsidies, and job counseling. We also run a network of job training centers across our region. Our pledge to the Alliance is to promote work-based learning. We aim to learn from other members in order to be able to increase the number and the quality of our VAT and apprenticeship programs. We are very excited to start this partnership with all of you. Thank you for your attention.
Greetings from Norway. My name is Kristina Rabe, and I am the head of section for vocational training in Vestfold and Telemark County Council. In Norway, the county councils are responsible for the upper secondary education. Vestfold and Telemark County is a large region south of Oslo. We have 21 schools, and they all offer both academic and vocational training. We have about 3,800 apprentices that we are responsible for in companies. And the Council ensures that national laws and regulations regarding education are implemented in the schools and in the companies. And in Norway, most vocational training is a combination of 2 years in school and 2 years in work-based training. An apprentice contract is signed by 3 parties. It's the apprentice, the company, and the county council, whereby the county council is legally responsible for the apprenticeship. And every normal year, we organize placements abroad for apprentices through the EU program Erasmus+. We usually send about 30 to 40 apprentices abroad, and the mobilities last from 2 weeks to 6 months. And we also offer staff mobility for teachers and instructors. And we have experienced partners in several countries, and we are open for reliable partners who can offer high quality opportunities. We look forward to learn and build a network of vocational training with colleagues throughout Europe.
Yeah, that's great. In total, we now have 20 regional and local authorities from 8 countries as members in the Alpha. But of course, we would love to have more. So if you are listening now, or a representative from a county or a municipality or a city, we would very much welcome you to join the Alpha. So we are not, however, only welcoming newcomers from regions and municipalities today. For the first time in a long while, we will be welcoming a new country. And in line with our internationalization policies and in cooperation with the European Training Foundation, we are now extending membership in the European Alliance for Apprenticeship to potential candidate countries, Eastern Partnership and Southern Neighborhood countries, by offering them the status as an EALPHA partner country. And I am delighted to welcome Israel as the very first EALPHA partner country, and a warm welcome to Thierry Ifergan, Acting Director General of Labor and Head of the National Institute for Technological Education and Training, and who is now with us. And please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here. By looking at our national economy, it is clear to me that what Israel needs is to better align supply and demand in the labor market. A well-functioning, productive labor market must rely on the highest level of compatibility between what employers and workers need. This is why supporting apprenticeship, both in quality and in larger number, is a good investment on the side of the government. It is also a good place to start when dealing with the outcomes of the COVID pandemic. While I've just recently stepped in the position of Acting Director General of Labor, I've been working on reforming the National Technological Education and Training System for the past 5 years, and I am well aware of the challenges we face. In 2017, the Division of Labor set out to plan for the future of the labor market to the year 2030. A public committee for promoting employment to 2030 laid out recommendations for national reform in vocational and technological education and training. In essence, the reform is about improving the quality of the national system for adult vocational and technological education and training. The reform is the main tool in raising overall labor productivity and in raising wages for those on the lower half of the pay scale. It is also a way to increase labor mobility because it is for populations that have a more difficult time integrating into the labor market, and because it can better the lives of those with a weaker socioeconomic background. The reform in technological education and training works to improve training quality by updating many of the offered programs while fully integrating social partners and employers in curricula and training planning. The reform strengthens the training institutions and colleges by providing them with an incentive to form industrial relations and to arrange apprenticeship opportunities themselves. An important component of the reform is the strengthening of ties with employers and professional chambers. Our ministry has just signed a partnership agreement with Israel's leading workers and employers organization to improve workers' skills and qualifications through social dialogue. This collaboration allows more data on the demand for qualified workers to flow from the industry to the government while using the data to anticipate needs and to refine training offerings accordingly. We are thankful for the opportunity to join the European Alliance for Apprenticeship. In joining this important alliance, we are sharing the stage with countries, organizations, and business committed to investing in the future and well-being of the economy and of individuals, and to tackling unemployment. It is an important chance to share and to gain knowledge and best practices, and it is an indication of the strong ties we share with the European Union and with its members. I would also like to give special thanks to the DG Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion, and to the European Training Foundation for their support of Israel joining the EIFA. We commit today to continue to foster and strengthen partnerships and collaborations with our social partners to improve the attractiveness and to increase the amount and quality, of course, of work-based learning opportunities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Terry. We are really looking forward to cooperate with you. I have some echo. Okay. I'm almost done now, but I would first like to mention our upcoming activities before summer break. Already next week, we will be holding a webinar on going digital in apprenticeships, and I think it should be very interesting. 24th of June, we invite you to attend to our live discussion on gender equality in apprenticeships, a very important topic, and I'm sure you agree. And shortly after this, we will launch our 6th online training module. This one with the topic apprenticeships as a first choice, and then it will be published in the beginning of July. Okay, that was all from me today. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Kerstin. That was really interesting, and congratulations to having the new members, and also a very interesting survey. So we are now entering the final stretch, the last 10 minutes of our event. I have two very interesting speakers lined up now. The first one is Manuela Gilleng. She is Director for Skills at the European Commission. And the second one will be Thomas Wobben, the Director for Legislative Works at the European Committee of the Regions. So each of them have only a couple of minutes, but I'm sure they make the best of it. We start with you, Manuela. The floor is yours. Just check the speak button if it works. Otherwise, let's hope the technology doesn't leave us. Then I will just give the floor to Thomas Wobben, who from the Committee of the Region's perspective is going to give us his sort of takeaways from this joint event. The floor is yours, Thomas.
Yeah. Thank you, Sandra. First of all, I'm very impressed about the discussion we had, and I'm very happy. And I also know that after this lineup of speakers, I try to be as short as possible. I think what the conference clearly showed are some interesting points. First, what the role of local and regional authorities are when it comes to apprenticeships. They are employers, they are supporters, they are funders, they are coordinators, enablers, cooperators, and also enforcer when it comes at the local, regional level. And we had a lineup of members really showing also the spirit, the encouragement and the innovation they provide at the local level for high-level apprenticeship. I wanted to also say that we have a new approach here. Apprenticeship is also about innovation, and I would really say that this cooperation we had for this event, but also the series of events, is an innovative initiative in itself. We had the push from our national German delegation to work on this. We had the strong collaboration with DG Employment in this field, but also the engagement of a European Association for Local Regional Authorities for Lifelong Learning, and a dedicated region like the Basque Country to join us in this endeavor as well. I think this format of cooperation, flexible, multi-level, is also very interesting. Also with the engagement of the OECD and others, which clearly show that, let's say, we can learn from each other and we can enrich each other's discussion on this. This part is also part of our action plan together with the Commission, the Director General for Employment, and with Commissioner Schmidt, and I'm personally very thankful for his input yesterday. Of course, we face key challenges. I don't want to repeat them all. We have the big transitions coming up. We have the post-COVID situation. And this can only be developed through collaboration, partnership, social dialogue, which is also very important in order to make sure that it has happened. And the European Alliance for Apprenticeship come at the right time to digest and to help in this direction. We have just seen that regions and cities are joining the partnership, and we see this also as our task to promote this, to have a stronger engagement of them. And you can clearly see that our members have been very motivated and active in providing input, but also in promoting this platform in the future. So I can really say from the side of the Committee of the Region, we are very pleased for this collaboration. We are very happy that it has reached out, had worked out in the way. It was initiated under the German presidency, but due to COVID, we are a bit, had to adapt on it. But I can clearly say that the input, the enthusiasm of the members, the feedback we got, but also the ideas for the future are really food for thought for further development. And I would like to encourage everybody to stay on track, to use the momentum to make this a key element also for the recovery, for social cohesion, for competitiveness, for cooperation in the future. And in this sense, I would like to thank very much, particularly the colleagues from DG Employment who worked with us on this. I would like to also thank the moderator, Sandra, also who is also representing indirectly the ECOSOC here, because you're an ECOSOC member, and which is also a good example of collaboration. And also my team here in the SEDEC Commission, particularly Alexandra and Doru, who have worked tirelessly on this matter. So we are looking forward to the future cooperation here and see this as a start. And you can be assured that the committee will stay at the side to make the European Alliance for Apprenticeship a success and an interesting and useful venture for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Thomas. And I'm sure everyone is very glad to hear that there will be that kind of support from your organization and also from the members that we have already seen really being engaged on this topic and contributing as extensively as they have. I will try again if I could reach Manuela from the DG from the Commission, the Director for Skills there. I'll see if that works. Press the speak button, and then we'll see if we can get you on the screen. Sorry, try again. Maybe there is this red speak button, but well then, unfortunately, we have to make do without the last words from the Commission, but I'm sure you have been following the discussion. You have, of course, been involved in the organization. So we are sure you are still and you are committed to working together with all the different stakeholders that have contributed to this event. I'm very happy that you all took the time. Thank you so much for following the event. Thank you also to the speakers who contributed a lot of interesting insights. I think really we all have the joint task of working to improve the perception and the image of apprenticeships. We have to jointly work together to know the needs of the employers, work with SMEs and others that offer apprenticeships, have the networks developed on the local and regional level, cross-border as well, so also welcome to the new EAFA members that will contribute to this effort, and thereby also promote the mobility of apprentices. So if I could add at the very end my personal vision, it would be great. It would be really awesome if all young people leaving school in the EU would have an opportunity to work, for instance, as apprentices in another EU country for a while, to really enjoy living abroad and getting to know another country than just their own one, and really sort of opening their horizons by doing this. So that would be, I guess, a goal that we all would love to work towards. And I'm looking forward to the continued cooperation among all of you and your engagement on this. So thank you very much for having joined, and enjoy the rest of the day and the coming weekend. Thank you.